to Divergent. It's been a while. It's been like 2 months and a lot has been going on. I started this channel with huge lists of ideas and a ton of motivation. And I think I was really kind of hyper focused on the channel for a couple of months. And then life hit and I just started feeling not unmotivated, but maybe a little bit discouraged and like getting in my head about this, this is so silly. No one is gonna care about any of this. What am I doing? I've been watching a lot of Spiral Lab on YouTube and thinking a lot about my first few videos on this channel, and I have a bunch of TikTok videos and stuff that I started at the same time. And I just feel like how I want to do this channel has changed. I want to focus less on executive functioning and hacks. And I think I want to focus more on creativity, design thinking, and showing my creative process in as real of a way as possible. Some of the things that I really wanted to do on this channel were makeovers, like room makeovers, and making spaces as accommodating for me and my family as possible, and doing it in a way that's sort of authentic to us. But I realized that the way that I work is not easy to film. It's not easy because it's not linear. My creative process isn't linear, and neither is the way I design a room. And it takes a really long time, and there are gaps in between certain steps. I think a lot of my discouragement over the past month or so has just been not knowing how to document this in a way that will be engaging and useful and like understandable to folks. And also it just takes a really long time. Like, it's hard to chuck out content twice a week, or do makeovers from start to finish, and that's what exists on YouTube. I don't think that's realistic for anyone, but it's certainly not realistic for me. My spaces are always changing, and it's a very iterative process. And so anyway, long story short, I was feeling really discouraged about the channel and just thinking that it didn't feel super authentic to me and what I want to do with this space. And so I thought, let me just kind of dive in and start with something, even if it's something small. Yeah, I don't know how this will all turn out. But I'm gonna try and show my creative process in the most authentic way possible. And I'm gonna start with a refresh of a smaller room in my house. And so that room is the dining room. I'll give you all a tour of the space as it is now so you can see what we're working with, what we like about the space, and what we want to change. All right, so here is our living room / dining room space. So we have this sectional here in the living room, and then this is kind of where the dining room starts. So as you can see, we have all of these like modem and router cables on the floor. We have this Straight Girls poster, which is a piece of art I gave to Dina for our anniversary a couple years ago. We have our exercise bike, as you can see, just sort of sitting here. We like to have it in the living room though, because we like to watch TV anytime we use it, which is very rarely. Here are the big windows in the dining room, which are really old and kind of like rotting, but they still work. So I have some ideas to take down those blinds and put up some homemade or DIY curtains. This is an IKEA glass bookshelf, and I'm really happy with this as it is. I like the styling that I've done. I like kind of the color palette that I've used. Here down below are some like arts and crafts storage that I need to sort through, some old frames. This is our built-in, so we have a bunch of like binders and paperwork storage on top, and then this is where we keep all of our books and our collectibles. I have like my therapy ducks right there. I get a duck every time I go to therapy. And then glassware that we collect. I have like a little metal art sailboat there, some art that I love. Down here, these are IKEA bins that are really useful, but I need to get a few more to fill in the space, so there's 4 on either side. That flag is from one of Dina's favorite soccer teams. And then here's another view. I love these beautiful chairs. They're primitive chairs I got on Facebook Marketplace, but they're just not very comfortable. And we don't really sit here to eat, so I think I need to put those in storage. And then here is just another view of the entire space. It's cute. Overall, it's a really cute room. So I've been working on this project for a couple of weeks now, and my idea, which didn't go to plan, was I wanted to just sit down and like record every time I did anything for this room makeover from start to finish. Like I imagined sort of like daily vlogs, but I realized that my creativity tends to be like stilted if I'm filming. There's too much planning involved with trying to do something creatively and then also having it be recorded. There's like a self-consciousness that's there. So I was finding that I wasn't able to really dive into whatever I was working on if I was also recording. So I just let myself do the things I wanted to do and the pieces of the project I had motivation for. So now I'm gonna go back and kind of explain to you all what I've been doing for the last 2 weeks. Okay, so I have my computer and I'm gonna just go through a few different things that I did to kind of start this process. And so if I'm looking down, that's why, but I'm also gonna record my screen so you can see what I'm talking about. So a couple of weeks ago, when I decided, I'm just gonna start this project, even if it's really small, and try and build momentum from there, I started just by doing a few different things simultaneously. One thing I did was I sat down with my wife and I had her help me. Like sometimes I have so many ideas in my head that I have no idea where to start. It's like so overwhelming. And so she's really good at being able to talk me through that. And like I have her write down some of my ideas and she's much better at like categorizing things and listing things out and that kind of thing. So I have this notebook that she and I used just to make some notes. So I basically just talked out all my ideas and then she wrote them in certain orders. One of the things we discussed was what are the functional needs of the space. Another thing we discussed was what's not working in our space, and then what we want kind of aesthetically and mood-wise, emotionally, how do we want the space to feel? So we made lists of those things, and I'll share those with you at some point. We also just wrote out tangible steps for each part of this refresh. So we started with like the different sections of the room. So we said, we want to do something with these built-ins that we have. What are the steps that we're doing for that? I want to do something with the windows. What are the steps for that? I also had her jot down supplies that I need and the general cost of those supplies so that I can, I'm trying not to spend too much, if anything, on this makeover, but I think probably I'll end up spending maybe like $100 to $150. So just knowing generally how much things cost, I can see if I'm going a little bit overboard or if I have stuff at the house that I can use. So in addition to my wife and I making those lists and getting things written down in a more concrete way, I also around the same time decided to make my couch. So I have a futon couch in my office and I pulled it down and made it into a futon and then created like a little kind of artistic nest cave for myself. I brought the duvet cover from my bed and I put it on here and I put a bunch of pillows and I spread out all kinds of artistic things that inspire me. So I spread out books if I have any like art or interior books or poetry books. I also like to have my computer so I can browse online sources that I get inspiration from. So I looked at Pinterest, I looked at Facebook Marketplace, I looked at Instagram, and I also pulled up like First Dibs and Cherish, which are fancy, very expensive antique dealers online, just to see kind of what types of things they're selling. So some of the books that I love that I spread out all over my futon, this one is called A Dictionary of Color Combinations, and I love this because I'm realizing more and more how much of a visual person I am. It's hard for me to picture color combinations, pattern combinations. It's hard for me to picture how things will look in the space. So anyway, this is a really good resource for color. So it has all of these beautiful color combinations. And I usually just go through and I'll look at like what colors I'm drawn to, or I'll look at what colors already exist in the space that I like, and I'll try and find the like complementary colors that are in here, and see if I have anything around my house that is that complementary color, or if there's anything that I could DIY by like painting it to make it that color. So I'll look through like my acrylic paints or my inks, or my pastels and see if I have stuff in that color. So I'm kind of doing all of this simultaneously. But yeah, that's a book that I love. I also tend to go through books like I have a lot of vintage, like mid-century books. So this is like a, I don't even know, furniture design. It's like a history of different types of furniture over like a 50-year span. But there's a lot of color, which I love in this one. I also have like old magazine subscriptions, so Elephant and then Apartamento. So I tend to like go through these, and there's oftentimes interviews with creatives or art pieces. And I just go and like fold down the pages of things that I'm drawn to. I have my kitty, who provides me endless inspiration. She hates to be kissed on the mouth. Hate it. She wants some of my pizza. I have like art books, like this is a collage book by John Evans. So a lot of what I do, I guess I'm realizing, is like look for color combinations, and that tends to lead me in a certain direction. Oh, this one I love, it's called Living with Books, and it's an interiors book, but just showing how people like decorate their spaces with books. And then I have some like other, like these are Apartamento magazine puts out these, they've put out 3 of these, but they're called living rooms in different cities. So this is like Berlin living rooms, this is New York, and then there's also Paris. Just shows the very real, like lived in, no fancy photography or design or anything, just kind of the real life spaces of people living in those cities. Some are famous people, famous creatives, some aren't. All right, so in terms of my online sources of inspiration, I tend to start with Pinterest. I'll sometimes just go to All Pins and just start like looking through stuff that I've accumulated, but I also have saved things in like very broad categories. So sometimes I'll look through like office DIY. So these are all kind of like office spaces that have been inspiring for me. And I'll see how people have arranged, you know, all of their books and their collectibles and those kinds of things. I'll see if I'm drawn to any particular colors. And I love looking at people's like creative spaces and their office spaces, particularly if they look somewhat chaotic. I just like to see how people work creatively and how that's reflected in their space. I find it so interesting. So that's a lot of kind of what I've saved here, a lot of like art studio and office shots. So yeah, or I will go to like, I have a home decor one, which there's a lot of overlap between these, but I tend to kind of just look through and see if anything jogs my memory or if I'm drawn to anything. I also have an art one. So this is one where I've saved images where like I like the piece of artwork in that shot, and typically I like the color of it in relation to the rest of the room that's in the picture. Yeah, so I just go through, this is kind of just like a giant collage. I mean, that's what Pinterest is, right? So I'll do that. I'll also open, yeah, like First Dibs, and just look at like any of the things on their first page, editor's picks, like what's trending right now. And then Cherish is another one where I'll just see like decor, let's see, or like furniture. And it's just so amazing how much these things cost. And then you can go on Facebook Marketplace and find sometimes identical items that people are selling for like $10 because they were used on a movie set in the middle of Georgia or whatever, you know, or people just don't know the value. So I don't know, this makes it kind of fun. So those 3, what else? Instagram, I'll usually pull up on my phone. I go down rabbit holes. Like I spent 3 hours the other day looking at the AD, Architectural Digest Spain 100 list, I think. It's their 100 notable designers of the year. And I literally went through every single one of the 100 Spanish designers, and I found their websites, I found their Instagrams. And I'm really drawn to Spanish design and like Spanish design color palette that's typically used in AD. And so I don't know. So yeah, and sometimes I'll like take screenshots on, like there's probably a million screenshots on my phone of random interiors images that I've seen on some website that I'll never look at again. I need to organize it, but I won't. So then the other thing that I do is I will take, if there are furniture pieces in the room that I'm decorating that I know I want to keep and use. So for example, in our dining room, I'm not really putting in any new furniture. I love our dining room table. I'm fine with the IKEA glass shelf that we have. And I may change up the chairs, but that's really it. There's not much furniture in that space. So anything that's staying in the room, I use Milanote, like the free version of Milanote, to create a visualization of the space. And so this is the finished version. This is kind of the direction that I'm going. And so what I start doing is I put in the pieces in the room that I know are gonna stay. So for example, the table that we got on Facebook Marketplace for like $10, but it's a West Elm angled leg expandable table. So I will find a picture of that table. So like here's one. And I just click and drag the image onto my desktop. And then I go to this website, which is remove.bg. And I just drag the image there. And it removes the background, and then you download this backgroundless version. I drag that to my desktop, and then I upload it onto Milanote. And so it creates like a way for me to visualize how things are physically in the space and the colors and if they're working. Or so to start, I did this with this poster or this tin art because we're keeping that. I also put in the bins that we have on top of the IKEA thing. I put in the IKEA thing. I put in our table, and then I put in like a representation of our IKEA bins that we have. And that's where I started. And then from there, I can see what colors already exist in the space. So the table, for example, is like this really deep, beautiful chocolatey brown color. And the baskets that we have are black with a black and white like ticking stripe. And then we also have baskets that are like blonder wood with a cream linen. And so then sometimes I'll just go back to my little book and I'll look and see like if I can find a deep brown color in here, like a warm deep brown, like the color of my table. And I will see what colors are here that like complement it, and if there are any that I love. And if you don't know what color something is in your space, what I like about Milanote is you can click here and drag these little color cards, and then you click on it and they have an eyedropper tool, and then you go to this, you go to the item that you want to know the color of, and it will give you a close match. So this one's gondola. You could even like maybe you think that it needs to be a little bit lighter. So you can take a picture of like this area of the table that's a little bit lighter, so maybe that's better. And then you can compare, you can either look up this exact Pantone code in Google and see what colors go with it, or you can look in here and find like a close match. And this is just more fun for me, I think. I really like it. And so then I'll just go from there. Something else that I'll do often when I'm feeling in a rut, like a creative rut, or if I'm feeling discouraged, is I will go back to art and just like making things with my hands or learning about a particular subject. So for instance, I have a subscription to a site called Creative Bug, and they have all kinds of online art classes. So, and I'm usually in like 2 or 3 classes at one time, like halfway through. So sometimes I'll just push myself to do like a couple lessons of a particular class. And that sometimes will provide momentum for me. Sometimes if I don't have the energy for that, I'll even just get out my paints and do like color mixing. So I'll like create a color wheel, and then with like the primary colors in white, and then I'll start mixing them to try and get different colors. It's just a way to kind of like keep me busy, but it does tend to build momentum. There is a color mixing class on YouTube that I really like. It's called Color Mixing Masterclass by Kyle Heath Art. So yeah, I really like that class. He just walks you through how to do that color wheel and how to understand like saturation, hue, and value, and how to make certain colors, how to mimic certain colors in the environment or in a picture if you're trying to replicate it, and then also how to make things warmer or darker warmer or cooler based on like the shade you're trying to get. Another thing I sometimes do is I put on some type of documentary or like a series of some kind on design. So I'm really into The Art of Design, I think it's called, on YouTube. And even there's one episode on interior design. The other ones are about like typeface design, sneaker design. Which other one was really good? Children's toy design. That one was like my favorite. It's just really interesting. You get to see creatives in their workspace. You also just get to see how, I don't know, like quirky and neurotic other creative people are who are very successful. Like, I don't know. There's just something like kind of like kindred spiritsy about it. I also really like some things that like maybe are unexpected, like British garden shows. I really love shows about restoration. So there's one called Restored on the DIY Network, Brett Waterman, who I really love. And then there's like American Pickers, which I love. So you can get inspiration in all kinds of places. Even TV shows, like recently my wife and I went back and rewatched Suits again, the entire series. And there's so much interior design inspiration in that show. I'm obsessed. The last season of Master of None, they're in this little cottage and it's just the most beautifully designed, sweetest space. So even like TV shows and movies and stuff, I get inspiration. So I guess to sum up, this is so not linear, but there's so much value in just absorbing information. And for me, that's probably 85% of a project is me just gathering all of the tools and knowledge that I need, and then eventually the doing will come out of that. But I need to give myself enough time to let my mind wander wherever it wants to, and take in as much diversity of information and inspiration as I can. And so really that's what I've been doing the last like 2 weeks. I will share some other small pieces of the project that I've been doing, but the bulk of it these last 2 weeks have been just gathering information, gathering inspiration, and hoping that something is happening, something is marinating in here.